Most personal trainers think that when someone inquires but doesn't book, it's because they were just window shopping or they were never that serious. And whilst that's comforting, it's usually wrong. In most cases, they probably were interested, it's just that your process was not good enough to convert them. So the question isn't, how do I get more inquiries? The question really should be, how do I create a process that's so strong that most people who do inquire want to join? Hello, my name is George Molyneux and I work with personal trainers to help them make better business decisions so you can make more money. So where does this belief come from? Now everything has a start point, and this really comes from the early stages of being a personal trainer, the whole it's a numbers game. And that makes complete sense during those early days. Of course it does. You need the repetitions, you need the experience in learning how to coach people and how to talk and how to train them. You need to have enough volume of data to be able to understand who you're for. Are you the sort of coach who's best at attracting younger men looking to get bigger? Are you better at working with women who want to de-stress from work? Whatever your niche may be, all that comes through volume. But I would really challenge that it's a numbers game. I would really seriously challenge it. So let me put it this way. Let's say you own a shoe shop, and you have 10 people coming into your shoe shop each day. Now, do you really imagine that 80 to 90% of those people are there not to buy something, not to buy a pair of shoes? If you have 80 to 90% of those people not buying something, the problem isn't that it's a numbers game. The problem is your shoes aren't good enough, your shop isn't attractive enough. Now, if you map that onto personal training, I'm afraid it's the same story. If you've got 10 people coming to inquire about your services per week, or even per day, even if you're attracting lots of people, and 80 to 90% of those people aren't then converting, the problem isn't them. Stop outsourcing your problems to them. Stop blaming them. Look inside and understand that, Jesus Christ, I'm building a ship here and it's full of holes. Your ship is not going to go out to sail. Your shop is not going to succeed. Your personal training business isn't going to be fixed by volume. It's going to be fixed by quality. Quality, then quantity every time. So why does this belief sound good? The whole belief of it's a numbers game, the whole belief of they were never that serious, and because quite rightly some people were never a fit for your particular services, square peg round hole situation, or or some people just generally weren't ready. They just were inquiring. There's always someone who sees an advert on Instagram or in the newspaper, if you're really old school, and it inspires them for a few moments, but they were never that serious in the first place, and that's fine. But these are all very comforting things for your imagination to run wild with and blame that on the reason why you think you need more volume, when in fact you don't need more volume, you need a much higher quality process. So when does this belief actually work? This belief of if they're inquiring but didn't convert, they were never serious. Now, it's true that if someone asks vague questions and then they just sort of disappear, fair enough. Maybe they were just sat on the toilet texting you. They had 5 minutes. Or similarly, if they refuse any next steps. A classic one here is they refuse an intro call. And that's always a bit of a red flag, isn't it? But most of the time, the belief is not true. Most people don't book because the next step isn't clear. They're like, okay, well, now what? That's especially true in DMs. I've seen lots of coaches try and have a conversation over DMs. I don't want to have a conversation, I want to speak to you. Or similarly, the conversation drags on too long and they just go cold. They get cold feet. Again, I think when people say it's a numbers game, they think volume. But I think that's a very shallow way of looking at. You're only looking at one number there. I'd say the greater number is speed. If you're fast, if you're rapid, you can get people whilst they're hot, and that's the trick. And we'll come to that later. So the problem isn't the process, the problem is your process. Let's have a look. Let's have a little look about what this is costing you as a coach. So we'll go back to that example of 10 people, but we'll do 10 inquiries per week. Now let's say 2 of those people book and 8 people don't. Now 8 people over 4 weeks, that's 32 people a month. So and now let's say that potentially your training costs $200 per month for your online business coaching, and you manage to convert just one extra person per week. Now, one extra person a week, that's for a month, that's an extra $800 in your bank per month. Now, that's not just from more leads, that's the same number of leads, just a higher conversion. Now, you can imagine how this, now that you've fixed the quality, now you have a better process. Even if you just get one extra lead, then you multiply the volume. You go from 10 people interested per week to 20. That's 2 extras. So that's extra $1,600 per month. It really scales, and it only scales if you get quality right first. You do not. It's quality always precedes quantity. I promise you. Now, emotionally, of course, this is potentially even more dragging. Now, I'm an entrepreneur, so I've had to play the numbers game before, and I've been in your position just in my own way. There's nothing more depressing and more upsetting than having to message people back like it's a formality. Yeah, we've all been there. You've been there, I've been there. It's exhausting and it's extremely depressing. Just knowing that you're sending these messages, knowing that there's a low chance of them responding, and it's because you don't have enough density and enough quality within your own systems for that person to move from being an 80% chance of them walking away to actually being an 80% chance of them joining. And it's exhausting. And I would say this is actually probably one of the number one reasons why personal trainers end up quitting personal training. Isn't because the money isn't that good, because for a lot of them, they do struggle to get out of that as well. But it's just because it's so emotionally dragging. It's exhausting. And no one should have to go through this. And it's something which I really feel something which me and my colleagues are working towards solving, and we look forward to bringing you that product soon. Now, money actions. I've got 3 things that I'd recommend that you do as a personal trainer, and we'll do this is in chronological order. So firstly, action 1, respond fast. Now, I went undercover as a client to about 200 online personal trainers. I'm very sorry to those personal trainers I went on undercover for, but I guess I added to their list of DMs of people that they've responded to and didn't respond and didn't go through for the day. You can see the funny side of it, at least. Now then, I found that anyone that responded within the 5 to 20 minute range was absolutely perfect. If a trainer does that, that's tickety boo. Obviously, if a couple of hours later, that's fine, but it should at least be within the same day, because you have to remember that clients are probably messaging anywhere from sort of 5 to maybe even 20 other coaches. So you have to strike whilst they aren't as hot. However, not so hot that you put them off. Allow me to explain. So there were some coaches within that test that responded instantly. Now, either they have virtual assistants, it was themselves, or they've got automations, one of those 3. And I would really highly recommend that you do not have any such system. At least if you do not have it within that 5 to 20 minute range. Now, the reason being is that one of the biggest advantages that you have as a coach you're having your presence on Instagram is authenticity. Authenticity is a currency that is only going to grow in value. And if you're pinging messages as soon as someone inquires, for them it comes across like, oh shit, I'm speaking to another robot. I just want to have an experience with a person, and it just puts them right on their heels. So don't have any system where you respond within less than 5 minutes, but anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes is optimal. It's enough to get them whilst they're hot. It's not so much so you put them on their heels. Number 2, now during the DM process, you are not there to have a conversation with them. You're not their friend. Do not try to be their friend. And I mean that in the best way possible. You're not there to be rude to them, but you're not there to ask them how their day is, do this, do that. You are there to get them to do one thing: get them on a call. And anyone who's serious about coaching, anyone who's serious about wanting your services, should want an intro call. That is, it's the universal approach for a reason, and I would never argue against it. But what I would push back against significantly is this, trying to warm them up over DMs. You do not warm them up over DMs. What you should do is you should have maybe 1 or 2 basic things that you ask, and they should be the same things that you respond with every client. And the reason being is that gives you data, so you understand how to iterate and how to improve those 1 or 2 messages that you do send. But then as soon as that's done, send them a link to book a call with you. Do not mess around. We are in the process of building a tool which is completely free for personal trainers, where you can send it within the DM process, and it's going to heat up clients rapidly, and it gets them straight onto a call with you, and away you go. So it'll have a much higher conversion rate. We'll be launching that in the new year, but so more on that later. Finally, action 3. So learn to talk. Now, so obviously this is for the intro calls. Now, learning to talk comes down to 2 things: saying the right words and saying them in the right way. That's it. Nothing more crazy than that. Now, saying the right words comes down to having a script. So just like with the DMs, you should have some kind of framework for your process. Now, the reason being is that if you don't have a framework, you cannot track where to make improvements. A bit like, how you track reps and sets and weight with a program over time. If you don't know what you did last week, it's not always easy to remember what to do today or to do this week. And so if you can track, you can iterate, you can improve. And I would never recommend having a script word for word. I've made that mistake before. I've pitched hundreds of investor angels. And I've done everything from having no script at all to having a script that you read word for word. Like with anything, the answer usually lies somewhere in the middle, and it's 100% the case with this. So have a script, have a framework, would probably be a better way of thinking about it, that you can use every time, and use that same one every time. But why not ask yourself, hey, what's one thing I could improve upon for the next call? Just one thing. And before you know it, you've got something which you feel is robust and has a much higher conversion rate as well. And secondly, so we've done right words, right tone. Now, with the right tone, so my background is in psychology, and a huge amount of psychology is actually it does come down to tone. Now, the last thing you want to do as a psychologist is you want to put your client on their feet. You don't want to embed uncertainty within their mind. And so if you are going up at the end of sentences, it really unsettles people. If you have a tone where you can go down at the end of sentences, it's not so much about having authority and control. It's what you're actually doing is you're providing them with safety, that you are the person for them. They're on this intro call. They want to give you their money, and you want to get their money into you, because that's what you're both there for. So if they can't trust you, if they don't feel safe in your hands because of the tone of your voice, because you sound anxious, because you sound uncertain, neither of you get what you want. And so you don't want that, they don't want that, I don't want that. So learn to control your tone, and this really unlocks everyone's ability to get what they want, the client and yours. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are a personal trainer and you found this very useful, or even just a little bit useful, why not give this a like, maybe even subscribe, anything, maybe even share it with a fellow coach. Anything to let us know that you found this useful and you would like more of this. But thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.